Monday, January 30th, 2023. I'm calling to order this confirmation roundtable to consider two nominations to the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability. Mrs. Norma Hutchinson and Ms. Melissa Tucker for terms that end on July 1, 2028. Before I get into the background of today's nominees, I want to say a little about the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, commonly referred to as BEGA. This important agency is divided into two main divisions. One, the Office of Open Government, that is an independent office within BEGA, and it enforces the Open Meetings Act, monitors the district's Freedom of Information compliance, and aids agencies with implementation of open government practices. And the second division within BEGA is the Office of Government Ethics. It is the office that investigates allegations of ethical misconduct concerning district government employees and officials. It has authority over the district's government workforce of approximately 34,000 employees, including ethics oversight of the mayor and the council. BEGA also provides binding ethics advice and conducts mandatory training on the DC government's Code of Conduct. That's a quick snapshot of BEGA and its duties. Now to our nominations. Ms. Hutchison and Ms. Tucker were both renominated to the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability by Mayor Bowser on October 21, 2022. Ms. Hutchison began her service as a BEGA board member in 2016. She is the current chairperson of the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability. She recently served as Deputy Managing Counsel for the Capital Metro Law Office of the United States Postal Service Law Department. She also has included in her service as a liaison and legal counsel to senior postal management and represented the Postal Service. She managed, litigated, and led trainings in the area of labor and employment law, ethics, and revenue protection. Ms. Tucker, our second nominee, began her service as a BEGA board member in 2019. She is an attorney advisor of the Office of Congressional Affairs under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Inspector General, where she advises Congress about proposed legislation and responds to congressional inquiries regarding OIG audits, evaluations, and investigations. Before the OIG, Ms. Tucker was an associate director in the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel, where she oversaw the analysis and determination of all Freedom of Information Act appeals that were submitted to the mayor. I look forward to a full conversation with both of our nominees. And at this time, I would like to acknowledge any of my colleagues who may be on virtually in the event that they are. Do we have any? No. All right, okay. All right, we will now, recognizing that we do not have any members of our committee with us today, I'm going to turn to our nominees, and I'll start with Mrs. Norma Hutchinson and Ms. Melissa Tucker. I guess we'll ask the both of you if you would raise your right hand, and so we can swear you in. I see you. I'm sorry, I can't see you on my monitor. So that's what now I see you on the monitor. Okay, all right, my staffer, all right. Do you swear and affirm your testimony and any statements that you make before us and complete?
I do.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And we'll begin with Ms. Hutchison. Do you have a statement that you would like to make?
Yes, I do.
All right, please go right ahead. And then we'll come to you, Ms. Tucker.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Bonds, members of the committee, staff, and guests. My name is Norma Brown Hutchison, and Mayor Muriel Bowser nominated me to continue as a member of the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, also known as BEGA, on October 21st, 2022. I am humbled and honored by this nomination, and I thank Mayor Bowser for this opportunity to continue to serve. I also thank you, Chairperson Bonds, for convening this hearing. I would like to share personal and professional information about me, including how my experience makes me prepared to continue service as a member on this board, where I currently serve as chair. I reside in my childhood home in Ward 4, to which I returned in January of 1999. I hold no other office or employment in the District of Columbia government. I'm a native of Washington, D.C., having attended its public schools, graduating from Roosevelt Senior High School. My parents and brothers are all deceased, but I now have 31 nieces and nephews who span 3 generations. I am a deacon and church attorney, an unpaid position, at Zion Baptist Church in Ward 4. I hold a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Political Science from Bucknell University and a Juris Doctor from the University of Pennsylvania Law School. I am a member in good standing of the District of Columbia Bar. Since my initial appointment to BEGA in 2016, the Women Lawyers Division of the National Bar Association has added me to their scroll of distinguished attorneys, and the Greater Washington Area Chapter of the Women Lawyers Division of the National Bar Association, also known as GWAC, honored me with their Charlotte E. Gray Award. Professionally, I spent my entire legal career as an attorney in the General Counsel's Office of the United States Postal Service. 22 years of my 35-year career were as a manager responsible for recruiting, managing, litigating, and training in the areas of law, of labor law and employment law, ethics, and the Freedom of Information and Privacy Acts. I provided ethics advice and ethics training to and reviewed and maintained annual confidential financial disclosure reports for the postal managers and employees in a geographical area covered by the Capital Metro Law Office. And this was the District of Columbia, Maryland, and all except the southwest corner of Virginia. I also reviewed highway mail contracts for conflict of interest and attended many of the annual conferences that the Office of Government Ethics offered. And as a postal career postal career service executive, I was required to complete annual ethics training and file a financial disclosure report. The United States Postal Service is covered by the Federal Office of Government Ethics statutes and regulations and has its own code of ethical conduct. The Freedom of Information and Privacy Acts also apply to the Postal Service. The Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, or BEGA, is responsible for enforcing the District of Columbia's Code of Ethical Conduct and ensuring compliance with the district's Freedom of Information and Open Meetings Acts. The District of Columbia's provisions are analogous to the federal laws that are applicable to the United States Postal Service and to the agency's Code of Ethical Conduct. Consequently, I have extensive postal experience that mirrors the work of the BEGA Office of Government Ethics and Office of Open Government. In addition to my postal career, I have a long list of positions held in the National Bar Association, GWAC, the GWAC Foundation, the Women's Bar Association of the District of Columbia, and the Women's Bar Association Foundation. I presently serve as chair of the YMCA of Metropolitan Washington and treasurer for the Eastern area of the Links Incorporated. I also serve as membership chair for the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Theta Omega Omega chapter. I am a member of Leadership Greater Washington class of 2000. I am extremely proud of BEGA and the service that BEGA has provided to the citizens of the District of Columbia. We have an engaged, dedicated, and extremely qualified board. I'm particularly proud of how quickly we adjusted our operations after the COVID-19 pandemic began so that we could continue to serve DC citizens as the pandemic surged. We have made multiple changes to and expanded our staff. I personally have participated in or led the hiring of our current Director of Open Government, Director of Government Ethics, the Board Counsel, and the General Counsel. We have a high-performing, tightly run professional organization that has incorporated suggestions, made improvement to our processes, and enhanced our output such that we rarely find ourselves in a reactionary mode. The agency has fine-tuned our ethics and open government training for and the provision of advice to DC employees. We have addressed specific challenges identified by district citizens and this council so that our organization is among the finest in the city. I look forward to assisting with the pending relocation to office space that will allow even more improvement in our service to DC citizens and our internal operations, as we also accommodate our expanded staff. If confirmed to continue as a board member on the BEGA, I will endure to make my best efforts to assist my fellow board members and the district and the people of the district earnestly and meaningfully. This concludes my testimony. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And now we'll turn to Ms. Tucker. All right.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Bonds, members of the committee, and staff. My name is Melissa Tucker, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to testify regarding my reappointment to the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, or BEGA. I would also like to thank the mayor for nominating me for this position. I have been a government attorney practicing at state and federal levels since 2005. Before moving to the district, I was an attorney and public records officer for the city of Providence, Rhode Island. When I moved here to DC in 2011, I joined the Office of the General Counsel at the DC Council, where I assisted members and staff in drafting bills and resolutions, including the legislation that established BEGA. I also helped develop the council's first code of conduct and served as the council's FOIA officer. In 2015, I joined the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel, known as the MOLC, where my primary responsibility was overseeing the adjudication of FOIA appeals submitted to the mayor. During my time at the MOLC, I assisted in drafting over 500 opinions on district agencies' compliance with FOIA. In 2018, I joined the Office of Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, where I currently serve as senior counsel. At OIG, I provide guidance on the agency's compliance with FOIA and other disclosure laws. I also advise on OIG's law enforcement operations and whistleblower investigations. I have had the privilege of serving as a member of BEGA since May of 2019, and it truly is a privilege to work not only with my fellow board members who care deeply about ethics and integrity in district government, but with the directors and staff at the offices of Open Government and Government Ethics within BEGA. The staff are the backbone of the agency, and we as board members are grateful for their dedication and their talent. As a board member, my work entails attending monthly meetings, reviewing agency products, such as our best practices report, which we recently issued, and generally overseeing the work of the Office of Government Ethics and the Office of Open Government. We monitor ongoing litigation, both in the district and across the country, related to ethics and government transparency. We consult with the staff about confidential investigations involving district employees, as well as personnel matters involving BEGA staff. As board members, we also adjudicate fine waiver requests related to financial disclosure statements, and we review and approve or reject proposed settlements that BEGA staff have negotiated with individuals regarding their violations of the district's code of conduct. The work is challenging, but it is equally rewarding to be involved in such an important function of district government. It would be an honor to be reappointed and continue serving on BEGA. Thank you very much for your time and for holding this hearing and for considering me. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you both for your comments. I do have a few questions. I know that you're being renominated, and congratulations on your renomination. And now we'll just talk a little bit about your role as a member of the board and the work of the agency that you've been involved in, if you don't mind. I wanted to ask Ms. Hutchison, you made a couple of important statements, and I was very curious about that. Wondered if you mentioned the code of ethical conduct with the United States Postal Service, and I wondered how it might differ from what we have in BEGA, as we call it. Are there any strong differences, or are they very much aligned?
I believe they're pretty much aligned. The difference is it applies to all postal employees. There's no, and there's one code that applies to all postal employees.
Okay, so is there a separate, when we talk about the BEGA and the scope of influence that it has in the district government, are there some employees that are left out or that do not fall under BEGA?
There are no employees that don't fall under BEGA, but there, as I understand it, there is a slightly different code that applies to the council that applies to the rest of the city employees. So one of the goals that we have is to have a comprehensive code.
Okay, now, is there some distinction as it relates, or does BEGA refer to, does it apply to our local judicial system?
I don't recall I don't recall seeing a matter that related to any of our judges, so I don't know that offhand, but I'm not 100%, so I won't say. All
right. How about you, Ms. Tucker? Are you familiar with that? And I asked you because you say you're one of the authors of the BEGA. So was that one of the intentions?
Certainly with the administrative law judges, as district employees, they are subject to those provisions, yes.
All right, okay, so just the administrative law judges and not the other judges that we have in our system.
Not to my knowledge, to be honest, but I would like to check on that as well, as Chairperson Hutchinson said.
I was just very curious about it because, and now we have someone who is one of the authors of the original law. So I said, we need to investigate what was the intention and how is it really set up and run. So thank you for that answer. I would be very interested in knowing if some consideration had been given to all of the District of Columbia government or not. If you could,
we'll look
at some point, let me know about that. Okay. The other thing I was interested in, you mentioned, Ms. Hutchison, you said you're very anxious for the relocation of the office space. Where are you moving?
We are moving to a location that I believe is around 15th and K. 15th. Northwest, right.
All right. And you also said you have expanded staff. What is the size of your staff now?
Wow, it's kind of hard to get our arms around because we're constantly adding new positions. I know we've added at least 2 attorneys on each side. We've also added an information officer to handle inquiries from the media.
Okay.
The space basically, we outgrew the space as the agency evolved. And so with COVID, we really realized how we're sort of working on top of each other, to coin a phrase. So relocating became even more of a priority. And we are working with the powers that be in the district government. I guess it's the building people, I'm not sure of the exact title, and have identified space, and we're actually working on the space now. But also make it easier in terms of improving the access to the hearing room. Right now, we have to walk through someone's office to get to the hearing space. The board does. So it's just going to be better all the way around in terms of the service we can provide, but also in terms of accommodating all the employees that we have now.
All right. Well, I'll look forward to learning more when we have the oversight hearings that are coming up in a few weeks. I am proud to say that you are in my committee for that as well. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that and how you are executing your responsibilities and helping us to execute our responsibilities as well. So thank you for that. Just a few questions. And let's see, one, what do you consider to be your major accomplishments as members of BEGA? And we'll start with you, Ms. Hutchison.
I consider the major accomplishment as, be perfectly honest with you, we are able to execute our mission and to address concerns from DC citizens, and also to keep our names out of the paper. And I'm being perfectly honest. I think one of our goals is to make sure we do our work and do it in such a fashion that we don't become a story in the local press. And we've certainly been able to get our arms around that. And we do not get inquiries about our day-to-day work. We just go about doing what we need to do to make sure the citizens are served.
Very good. How about you, Ms. Tucker? You have another sterling example?
I would say I'm particularly proud of the staff that we have hired. I think they're tremendously talented, as I mentioned in my opening remarks. They know the law. They're very fair, which I think is very important to the application of the laws that we are tasked with enforcing. And they do a remarkable job of maintaining a full docket of complaints that come before the agency and preparing them for us and really determining which have merit and should be further investigated and which do not. So I would say that I'm particularly proud of them and impressed with the work that they do every day.
So how many cases or inquiries you're aware of that were before BEGA, let's say last year in FY 2022?
I don't have a particular number in front of me, and I would defer to Chairperson Hutchinson if she does. It really varies for us because we see only a certain amount per month, the ones that move forward in terms of needing to be further investigated or disposed of via settlement, or we call them negotiated dispositions. So some months it's 10, some months it's 2 or 3. It really depends, but I'd be happy to get back to you with more firm numbers if you would like.
All right. What I'm really trying to determine is to understand better how board members operate within the office. What is your role? I know that you've given a lot of credit to the staff, and just curious as to when does the board member have the opportunity to make a decision or to review a decision that's made by the staff?
Okay. Okay, I'll start at least. As
Okay.
part of each of our meetings, we do have an executive session. As you know, there are provisions that allow us to go into executive session to take a closer look at the recommendations from the each of the offices and to get updates on litigation, any litigation that might be pending in the offices. So that's our opportunity to ask questions, very probing questions about the recommendations that we get from each office, and then to discuss them and then come out with a decision that we think is the best for everyone involved.
Okay. So you probably go into executive session at each of your monthly meetings so
That's
that
correct.
you can discharge your duties. And so is the volume of decisions that you review in the neighborhood of 10, or is it 50, or is it 3?
You mean at any given meeting?
Yes,
I would say, oh, it's well less than 10, probably somewhere around, I'd say between 5 and 10, and it depends on what's going on. Most of those, when it's the highest, and it would be when we're considering whether or not to waive fees that may have been imposed, or we're looking to not impose or impose for folks who have not filed, employees who have not filed the financial disclosure form. Other than that, the number tends to be, I'd say 5 or fewer in any given meeting.
And so how do you collect the fines from employees and from us, the elected officials? I've never had to pay, so I'm asking, really curious.
The board personally doesn't do it, but there is an electronic system that allows them to pay. Or you can bring, cash is always king. I am aware of one instance where a fine was paid with a check. Okay,
all right. So I'm hoping that there are staff across this government that are listening to know that the expectation is that you will pay your fine, and it will be collected.
The expectation is that you will file the requisite form on time so that we don't have to find ourselves in a position of imposing a fine.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for that. From my research, Baltimore, Philadelphia have a city board of ethics, and New York City has the conflicts of interest board. Are you familiar with any of their work? And if so, how similar is BEGA to these agencies?
I am not familiar with the work in other cities. I did have an opportunity to attend the Council on Government Ethics early in December, and we were able to meet ethics officials from all across the country, actually across the world, because we were in Montreal, and there were ethics, not a lot of board members, but mostly there were staff members and executives from ethics boards across the world. But other than hearing really what is very similar to what we do, I didn't hear anything that was different, and I don't know anything about the specific cities that you named. Okay.
All right. Ms. Tucker, are you familiar? You have some familiarity? Being one of the authors of the original law, I wondered if any of the other cities had their programs up and running when you were helping to structure the district's plan.
I think from my recollection, they're all fairly similar, as Chairperson Hutchinson mentioned. I would say that our model is pretty comparable to the equivalent of the State Ethics Commission in Rhode Island. I'm familiar with that body, and they do a lot of the same types of work that we do. I'd say we're probably more along the lines of being equivalent to a state entity as opposed to a city, but they're all more or less very similar.
Okay, let me ask you, what are the current challenges that BEGA is facing? And have you given consideration to solutions? And if so, if you'll articulate some of that to us today.
I'd be happy to go first.
All right.
Thank you for that question. I can't think of any particular challenge as an agency that we're facing. Certainly we were facing an issue with space and with staff resources, but fortunately we are going to be relocating to a bigger office that will accommodate our growing staff and our growing docket. One thing that I would say is a challenge generally for ethics compliance in the district is that there's a lack of consistent requirements for ethics training among district employees. I know that the Ethics Act tasks BEGA with training, providing frequent training, regular training to employees, but the only employees that I'm aware of who are required to take regular training under the district's personnel manual, the DPM, are those who are required to fill out the financial disclosure forms. So that leaves a bit of a void for all the other district employees that do not have to fill out that form. They're not necessarily required to attend training. This is something we've mentioned in our best practices report that we respectfully request that the council consider strengthening ethics requirements in legislation so that we may better face the challenges of lack of knowledge by implementing training.
So how many employees must fill out the form? I mean, of the 30, I think the mayor said we have 37,000 employees. I think somewhere I read it was 34,000. So of the number, how many actually must fill out the disclosure form?
It's a fair amount, I would say. I apologize, I don't know the number, but it depends on the nature of an employee's position, their duties, whether they are responsible for policy making and things of that nature. So I think it depends certainly on any given year, but I would venture to say it's probably between a third or a quarter. It's a large percentage.
So Ms. Hutchison, I wonder, it sounds like there are several, maybe 3, 4 different categories that stipulate the completion of this disclosure. Has thought been given to making it a little more uniform? Maybe it would make it easier for agencies to be compliant? Just wondering.
Certainly, that would, of course, require a legislative fix. It's not something we could just impose. But it would certainly make it easier for everyone to know what the rules are. The rules apply to everyone, but if you're sort of in the dark as to what the rules are, that probably isn't the best situation all the way around. So if there were some legislative tweaking such that everyone had to do some training, I'm not sure what else that would require in terms of resources. I'm thinking not that much, because much of what we do is certainly in the last 3 years has been virtual. So it's certainly a possibility and something that we would welcome that we take a look at.
I'd be very happy to have us take a look at that. I've been in and around the government for a few decades, and I know that BEGA is relatively new, and as a result, many employees are not clear as to the role that you have in really making a quality government and really assisting personnel with getting things done. So maybe we can explore that. I didn't know we were going to have a legislative outcome from this, but sounds good. Sounds like something that we really need to take a look at. And I do appreciate you all's responses. Let's see. There are a few direct questions that I'd always like to put on the record. And so Ms. Hutchison, I'll just turn to your, you provided us with the pre-confirmation roundtable questions. And I'm just going to read a couple of, just to make sure, if you would go on record, just giving us the answer you have given us. One, do you or does any member of your immediate family have any interest, financial or otherwise, that may directly or indirectly pose a conflict of interest for you in performing your duties?
No.
All right. And then it asks, number 15, please list all gifts and donations and meals by any source and amount received or made to any district employee over the last 10 years, and if employed by the district now or in the past. List all gifts, including meals, received in your official capacity over the last 10 years while employed by the District of Columbia. And your answer?
Is none.
All right. And then here's one, number 20. Please state the reason you left any employment position, including whether you have ever been fired, involuntarily discharged, terminated with cause, or left a position under unfavorable circumstances. And you gave an answer.
There are no positions responsive to this questions, and I retired after 35 years.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And then please, number 25, please list all political fundraisers or events you have either hosted or co-hosted in the past 10 years, including the name of the candidate, the date of the event, and where the event was held. And you listed, and I think it was 1920.
It was 2014.
I'm sorry, 2014, yes. Mhm.
Yes, I held a meet and greet for Lori Masters, who was a candidate for the DC Attorney General. I held it in my home, and there was absolutely no fundraising involved.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to make sure we put some of your responses on the record. And Ms. Tucker, I just sort of randomly did some checks for yours as well. Number 7, please provide the name of each business entity from which you or your immediate family have received or are receiving income in excess of $1,000 for services rendered during the past 5 years. And I think you gave us a few, if you don't have your questionnaire there, you said Department of Health and Human Services, me, District of Columbia Government, me, the Associate Press, spouse, American University, spouse, and Georgetown University, spouse. Am I accurate? Okay.
Yes.
For the record. All right. Number 11, do you or does any member of your immediate family have an interest financially or otherwise that may directly or indirectly pose a conflict of interest for you in the performance of your duties? And you indicated
No.
yes, you can read that one. Number 15, again, please list all gifts, donations, and meals by source and amount received or made to any district employee over the last 10 years, and if employed by the district now or in the past, list all gifts, including meals received in your official capacity over the last 10 years while employed by the district government. And I think you were employed by MOLC between 2015 and 18. The director paid for lunch for office staff on a few occasions each year. You said you do not recall the duties or the amounts of these lunches.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, all right, dates, I'm sorry, or these lunches. Okay, and one more, 19, please list any other boards of which you are a member, and you indicated none. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, okay. And then please itemize all political contributions to any candidate, political party, committee, political action committee, constituent service fund, or similar entity of $25 or more in the past 10 years, and you indicated none.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So I just wanted to put on the record, the whole file will be a part of the record, but I like to make sure that at least those that are participating in our hearing have an opportunity to hear from the candidates. I have one other question which I received, and that is, and maybe you can help us with this. How does BEGA handle a situation when employees have departed the government, but they are then accused of maybe they didn't file their forms on time, and there's some time frame that has elapsed? How do you handle that? Are they still required to remit the fine, or are they still considered under your thumb or your jurisdiction? How do we do that?
Yes, I think you're referring to the financial disclosure forms, and those are they are sent out and they cover the year previous. So we oftentimes have situations where an employee has retired, resigned, but they are sent the disclosure form that covers the previous year when they were employed by the district. And in that sense, they are under our jurisdiction because it's covering a time when they were employed. As far as they're responsible for filing it on time, and for, if they do not, for paying the fine or for presenting before us a reason why they were late or did not pay the fine. And we take those requests very seriously. Sometimes people were ill, they were hospitalized, they didn't receive the notice, something of that nature. Other times people did receive several notifications, but did not inquire or otherwise think that it applied to them. So we look at those circumstances and waive those fines where we find that it is fair to do so.
Okay, so do we need some sort of legislative fix to address that, in your opinion?
I don't think so. From my knowledge, I think the system works pretty well, but I would defer to the chair to see if she has any other input.
No, I don't, because most of this, if not all of it, is digital. So we're able to track people and to get the information from them that we need.
All right, okay. Well, thank you very, very much for that. That was one of the inquiries that we had, so I wanted to make sure we put it on the record so that everyone understands what the requirements are. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank both of you for your statement, and thank you for being with us today, and let you know that I am ready to conclude this hearing, but I would like to give you an opportunity to make a closing statement if you care to. Ms. Hutchison, I'll start with you.
Certainly. Again, thank you for convening this hearing. And I do want you and the citizens and council to understand that I take this very seriously. I don't think overly zealous about this, but I do think I'm a DC native, so this is very important. I've seen how we've evolved over time, and I think ethically we are in a pretty good place. We're not perfect. We're dealing with human beings, but we do have a system in place that I think is fair and that it works. So I'd like to continue my service given where we are and the work that we've done, particularly over the entire time that BEGA has been in existence.
Thank you. Ms. Tucker, if you.
Yes, I would also like to thank you, Councilmember Bonds, for holding this hearing, and your staff for arranging it, and reiterate the appreciation to the mayor for renominating me. It's a pleasure, but it's also a real privilege to serve on this board. And I'm cognizant of that every month. We unfortunately see the worst of the cases in the sense that we only hear the bad news. We're not being presented with all the good news that happens every day. But we're aware of that, that for every 5 cases we see, that means that there are thousands of people in the district who are doing their jobs, who are following the laws. And so I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that, that we have a very good, solid government and employees, and we appreciate that. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you both for your time today. And I will say this concludes today's roundtable. And the public record on this matter will remain open until the close of business on Monday, February 6, 2023. Any member of the public who wish to submit written comments on this confirmation should please do so by the close of business on next Monday, the 6th of February. And the next meeting of the Committee on the Executive Administration and Labor is a joint roundtable with the Committee of the Whole. It will be held on Wednesday, February 1 of this week at 11 a.m. via Zoom. And the roundtable will discuss the matter of the Compensation and Working Conditions Agreement 23 between the District of Columbia Public Schools and the Washington Teachers Union Local 2024 of the American Federation of Teachers. And with that, the time is now, oh wow, good. We're at about 1:49 p.m. on the same day in which we started. And thank you all again so very much.
Thank you. Thanks for holding the hearing.
It didn't come up, but then
Okay.
I mean, that's fine.
So what should we do? We should use this little thing or?
I'm trying to work it, figure out what is best. Get the Zoom feed up here. But if you use your laptop, it feeds back into the room. Because the mics just picks up the sound. The people in the Zoom is in there. So it's open. I figured that out today, that I'd rather for people to come in and we send the Zoom feed up here and they just use their use the mics up here.
Okay,
That's what we want to get worked out.
okay.
But that went fine. Tony, you finished? No. Looking at it? Oh, second,
Okay.
just a second.
Okay, so this was a test run.
No, but it was fine because when people were texting me saying that the DC, like, we could not see.
So
So
that's
why-
why they have to get that straight.
And that's why I gave my line.
Yeah,
So
I
that
didn't know
you
what was
to be
going on.
seen.
I was trying to be compliant.
I know. I was like, oh, I don't want to distract you, but I also want to make sure you're
Well, yeah,
seen.
because what happened, see, Larry told me, he said, you'll be using that screen.
Right.
So then when you move this over, it's like,
Let's go.
well, in my head, it was like that, but I hope I wasn't
Oh,
like,
no.
I
think
didn't
it- I think it-
scream or anything.
Oh, no.
No,
not at all.
okay.
I,
So,
just wanted to make sure because YouTube.
I forget about
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh my
So I
God,
wanted
this
to
is,
make sure that
Larry,
were
you got a
seen.
tough job, honey. Oh my Lord.
So that's why.
Oh, we better get ourselves back in this building fast and in a hurry. But you know what I mean? I'm just saying we better get back to what we call normal again. It's such a challenge.
Right. That's why we had to do that quick thinking. Just push the left.
Yep. Thank you for being quick thinking.
Oh, Chris, you know I have your back. Oh,
Every time you want to speak, we have to do that again. Speak right here. See, I want to get out on speaker. That's the person that's going to be on the camera. Well, not on that camera, but it'd be like when you watch TV, the person speaking.
Because you saw that when.
Right, I had to switch it later. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is it okay?